We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends. And if you want to support this channel through a super chat donation, hit the $sign, make a comment, and we'll get to it as quick as possible. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your phone calls and with your chats in the chat room. Let's get going. We have a stacked show. Let me thank people for coming on in. Skull Ducky is in the house. Hagen is in the house. Red Raider Laurel Rice is in the house. John Till, early peak member. Stephen McNeely is in the house, early peak member. Mr. Colorado Buffalo, Richard L. is in the house. John Menser, Emilia, Noel, good afternoon, football fan family. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate it. We have so much going on here. Matt Neeson is in the house. I got something strange. Why can't I get... Something's weird here in the studio. Anyways, we'll get through it. Ted Evans, thank you so much for being in the chat, and thank you so very much for gifting 5 gift memberships. Holy smokes. You are here knighted once again. Cloak and Dagger. So is Katie Dads. Buckshot Kid, N.E. the Big Lubbock's, and Exmos Talks, y'all all now. Cloak and Dagger members, thank you so much for your incredible generosity to the channel. Mr. Washington Huskies. Wow. Incredible. Thank you so very much. Absolutely. Buckshot Kid. Everybody's thanking Mr. Ted Evans, as they should. Wow. Thank you so much. Cloak and Dagger. Heating up. It's been heating up for quite a while. We have such a stacked show. I promise you, I'm going to do the best I can to get through this monologue so we can get to your chats, so we can get to your phone calls as soon as possible. There is, we've been holding off on this, but there is movement in the Holy Smokes Theater. And it's movement in the 35th row. And for those who've been watching this, who are longtime watchers of this program, the Holy Smokes Theater is where we describe what is going on. Drama field in college football. Mainly the Holy Smokes Theater has been centered around realignment. But in the future, this is how we're going to describe a lot of things playing out in college football in a way that's hopefully entertaining, informative, and that doesn't burn our sources here at Peek Around the Corner. Now, for pretty much all of you, you understand, you know that that row 35 is just, it's a 40-row arena. It's a 40-row auditorium. So movement in the 35th row, yeah, it don't mean much, right? It don't mean much. You got Clemson and Florida State at the center of the stage. You have North Carolina and Miami in row number 1. In row 10, you know what? I had the notes on this, and now they're all gone. Where are my notes? Who came in here and stole my notes? Anyways, in row 1, it's North Carolina and Miami. In row 6, it's Tony Petiti with NBC. In row 5, it's ESPN and Fox. In row 10, it's North Carolina State, Virginia Tech, Virginia. I hope I'm not missing anybody. I'm not. But there is movement in row 35, and we're going to get to it. I do want to say, you know what? I'm going to wait for that. I am going to wait on that. Let's get through a whole bunch of stories first. Then we're going to get into the Holy Smokes Theater. We're going to get there as soon as possible. Everything is tied to everything else, it seems. So we're going to get to it. Now, let's talk about Ohio State naming a new athletic director. Ross Bjork from Texas A&M. The Ohio State University has selected Ross Bjork to become the university's next senior vice president, athletic director. Again, he is coming in to crank up that NIL and to crank up that trust fund that all these schools are going to start creating to pay their student athletes directly. It's coming. It's going to happen. It's going to happen just in a few months, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to happen probably by August, September of next year. So everybody's cranking it up. Everybody is cranking it up. And this gentleman from Texas A&M has a good reputation of cranking up the NIL money talking to donors, has the great relationship. He does not have the greatest reputation when it comes to, well, his hiring processes. At Mississippi, when he was athletic director, when he hired Matt Luke in a rush job, after Hugh Freeze was fired, Mr. Ross Bjork did not handle that situation very good at all. Ole Miss Rebel fans, you know what I'm talking about. He left you with a coach. It was a very poor hire, but it was even a worse hiring process. Well, at Texas A&M, I think he got the right guy, Elko, but the hiring process, again, was disjointed, not impressive. So I question this hire. But again, he's in there to bring in the money. And also, from Dan Hope, at today's Ross Bjork's introductory press conference, asked Ohio State's new athletic director. Both Bjork and new Ohio State President Ted Carter have advocated for a new NCAA model. Carter, the new president of Ohio State, who was the former president at Nebraska, says he believes revenue sharing with athletes will be part of the future of college sports. And we've been saying that here at Peek Around the Corner since episode number 1. Episode number 1, August of 2022, was our manifesto. That is the straw that is stirring the drink when it comes to realignment and basically everything else in college football and college sports. And you're going to see here in a second why it's the straw that is stirring the drink. Everybody has been anticipating this for years, and we think here at Peek Around the Corner that is just right around the corner. In fact, let me show that to you right now. Let me show it to you right now. What's all going to happen here? Just give you an example. Where again, if you're just joining us, we're going to get to the Holy Smokes Theater here hopefully soon. We have a stacked show. We've got a lot of information to get through college football. We haven't had a live show on Monday or Tuesday. We had 2 of them on Sunday. There is so much going on. Keep your head on a swivel. We cover everything in college football. So we're going to cover some of this stuff first, and then we're going to get to the Holy Smokes Theater. So please, hopefully, you all can be a little patient with me. We'll get to your comments and phone calls. Now, here is USA Today. In the springtime, there's going to be a USA Today report, like it is every single year, showing the athletic department revenues. Okay? Last year, Ohio State Buckeyes, their athletic department had some $250 million, led the nation in athletic revenue. These schools are starting to report their revenue. Okay? It's still going to take a little bit of time for USA Today, I believe. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I might be wrong. It usually happens in March or April, but we'll see. They're going to gather up all the school's revenues. They're going to give it a list, break it down by categories of how the money came into the athletic department, donations, media revenue, so forth, so on, student fees. A report this morning by Steve Berkowitz, USA Today. Texas reported athletic department revenue of $271 million in 2023. 271. The University of Texas athletic program, always among the nation's most financially powerful, again went to a different level. Just over 271 in operating revenue for the 2023 fiscal year. Opened at USA obtained this report in an opens records request in partnership with Knight Newhouse Data Project at Syracuse University, means that Texas increased its revenue by nearly $32 million. For now, this new total stands as the largest single total. Last year, Ohio State reported 251. Oregon reported 391 in 2020, but that included more than $270 million as a contribution to the renovation of its track and field stadium. Okay, so the schools are starting to report, right? Starting to report their money. This was found out by FOIA, basically, but we're all going to find out everybody's athletic program's revenue in the spring of 2024. When it came to the time of July 22 to July 23, that's the revenue that's going to be announced in public in the spring of 2024. That's how it works. Schools have to provide their 2023 reports to the NCAA by Monday, by this coming Monday, January 22nd. And so far, only a few schools have released them. Penn State, LSU, Tennessee. All three of those schools are reporting over $200 million for the first time. For the first time. Penn State, LSU, Tennessee, all over $200 million. Texas will be joining LSU and Tennessee in the Southeastern Conference this summer. Kansas State, which is currently in the Big 12 Conference with Texas, reported revenue of $102.3 million in 2023. Okay, so I'm just giving you, giving everybody a heads up. We're going to be seeing more and more of that, okay? More and more of that. More reporting from revenue. And again, Texas, $271 million, but they have yet to see a drop of the SEC media money. Tennessee's over $200 million. That new SEC media deal kicks in July 1st, 2024. Now, Penn State did receive some of the new Big Ten media money when it comes to these financial reports. Some of it. Not an entire year, because it goes from July 22 to July 23. That gets reported for the spring of 2024. What I'm saying is these SEC numbers and Big Ten numbers, what you see in this report in spring of 2024 are only going to skyrocket in the next report. And they already have a huge advantage over all the other FBS schools, basically. Revenue sharing. That's going to be the straw that stirs the drink. It has been. It's why Oklahoma and Texas called to get in the SEC. Not just so much for now, but in 10 years from now. This is why Florida State. This is why Clemson. This is why there's constant movement in the Holy Smokes Theater. This is why the Big 12 tried to get the advantage over the Pac-12. They did. It's why the Big 12 is going to try to get the advantage over the ACC here in the next couple years. It's all about trying to reach the highest ground possible because of revenue sharing to the student athletes. Okay. Now, let's get on to more stories. We're going to get back to this. It's all connected. Okay. We're going to get to the Holy Smokes Theater here in a little bit. We have coaches updates. Iowa, Brett McMurphy yesterday. Iowa wide receiver coach Kelton Copeland not retained. That is not a surprise. Phil Parker, Broyles Award winner, $1.9 million. Defensive coordinator, Phil Parker, $1.9 million. Seth Wallace named assistant head coach. They're also in search for an offensive coordinator. It's ongoing. An announcement expected in the near future. We still do not know who's going to be the new offensive coordinator at Iowa. And that is going to be a big story whenever that happens. Because if they can get somebody who can turn that offense around, holy smokes. By the way, we're talking about Iowa. Let's talk about Caden Proctor. The highest offensive lineman in the high school class last year. Iowa, he was committed to Iowa. Iowa. In-state product, Caden Proctor. But then he goes to Alabama. Nick Saban. Breaks the hearts of the Hawkeye fans in the state of Iowa. He plays all these games for Alabama. Big time player. All true freshman player. He's in the portal. He is in the portal. So all eyes are on Iowa. All eyes on Notre Dame. All eyes on the Buckeyes. Who's going to get this Caden Proctor? He is going to be a starter at left tackle. He is going to be absolutely dominating for the next 2 years. Who wants a left tackle that is going to be absolutely dominating at his position? How much is it worth to your program? How much is it worth to your program, to your NIL collective? The brink trucks are going to be backing up into the driveway of where Proctor lives. Beep, 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 beep. Bags of cash. Who's going to get Mr. Proctor? Put down your comments. Let me know in the comments section. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. And again, that's not the only story in Alabama. Alabama freshman All-American safety Caleb Downs is starting the process. He is in the transfer portal. He was one of the country's top freshmen in 2023. He was rated number 2 in the class. I remember that. Number 2 or number 1. Then he plays every game. Freshman All-American. True freshman All-American. 2 years of eligibility remaining, just like Proctor. He's in the portal. The Brinks truck is going to be backing up into Caleb Downs' driveway. Georgia, the Bulldogs, and the Buckeyes are the 2 names that you're going to be. Those are the 2, I believe. Possibly Notre Dame as well. And again, we go back to this story. Ohio State officially announced Ross Bjork as its next athletic director. He is the money guy. He's going to be building up the Buckeyes NIL and that trust fund that everybody's going to be creating. Holy smokes. Caleb Downs and Proctor are in the portal. Ralph Russo. It feels like we're welcoming Alabama fans to the real world after 15 years living in college football paradise. It does seem like that, don't it? This is the real world. You're never on stable ground in college football. You are never guaranteed anything in college football. I don't even care. It's been this way for everybody except for Georgia and Alabama the last 15 years for Alabama. Last few years for Georgia. Welcome to the real world. A couple other things I want to get to. Maurice Lindquist gets hired by Alabama. Alabama set to hire Buffalo head coach Maurice Lindquist to its defensive staff. Lindquist is the second sitting head coach to leave his job to work for Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Look, one, they got Womack, the head coach of South Alabama, who's doing such a wonderful job. As South Alabama was elevating the program, football program, Womack is going to Alabama defensive coordinator. I think Maurice Lindquist is going to be part of the secondary coaching at Alabama. Maurice Lindquist, he was with PJ Fleck when PJ Fleck first came to Minnesota. Lindquist got promoted to assistant head coach. We all thought here at Minnesota that Lindquist was going to be the new head football coach at Minnesota once PJ Fleck moved on. But then Lindquist went to Dallas. He went to the NFL. He wanted to scratch his itch. But then he became a head coach at Buffalo Bulls. And now he's back in the big time Alabama. Just remember the name. Just remember the name Maurice Lindquist when it comes to possible FBS head coaching jobs in the future. And then we've got Jimmy Harbaugh. Yesterday we did an episode talking about how Jim Harbaugh is looking for protection in his new Michigan contract. Oh, he's going to get paid. That's not the problem. Jim Harbaugh wants protection. He does not want to be fired with cause. He does not want to be suspended without pay. He wants it in his contract if he's found guilty. The sanctions that are going to be coming down in Michigan from the NCAA, Jim Harbaugh wants protection. So far we know that he's interviewed with the LA Chargers. We know now that he's interviewed with the Atlanta Falcons. And I got a feeling he's probably going to interview with the Vegas Raiders pretty soon. So keep an eye on Jim Harbaugh. We're going to be following the Jim Harbaugh story. On and on and on and on. Okay. Let's get to the Holy Smokes Theater. Let me first get through some of these comments here. Thank you so much, John Teal, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Colorado back up the truck for LT and S from Bama. Colorado, do they have enough money? I don't think they're going to get either one. But I'm sure they'll be aggressive for other guys. I know they've been. Thank you for the super chat, John. I appreciate the generosity. Jared Jones, Mr. Buckeyes. Proctor's going to Iowa. I bet money on it. I think they're probably the front runner, right? D5 Terp says Georgia is still king. Georgia is still king. Hit the like button. Thank you, Right of Line. Appreciate it. Hit that like button. Baylor Bear alum Mo Lindquist. We got first dibs. R. Webb. Baylor Bears. Mo Lindquist. Now, did he have a great tenure at Buffalo? No, he didn't. But I'm just telling you. It's obvious. Everybody knows this. He is highly, highly respected. Mo Lindquist. He's... Just keep an eye on that name. Keep an eye on that name. Harbaugh's clause kind of admits guilt, doesn't it? I think it admits that he knows he's going to be found guilty of something. Or he's already has been. But more is coming. More is on the way. I think he's going to the NFL. And I think it's the Raiders. But he hasn't interviewed for the Raiders yet. Keep that in mind. At least that we know of. So far, it's the Chargers and the Falcons. Okay, let's get to it. Let's get to the Holy Smokes Theater. John D. Just want to remind Bama players entering the portal, it's a short drive to Tallahassee. Your bags are already there. Roll Tide. Holy smokes.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Thank you, John D, for your super chat, for your continued generosity to the channel. Bama players are going in left and right. There's a lot of freshmen. Keon, thank you, Annie. Keon Keeley, 5-star freshman, plans to enter the portal. It's falling apart in Alabama. The slippage, we talked about the slippage. Well, this is more than a slippage now. This is a problem. This is a problem. for Alabama. Kalen DeBoer, it's going to take him a while to get it back up there in Crimson Tide country. Okay. Holy Smokes Theater. Let me, this is going to take a bit here. We're going to open up the phone lines as soon as this monologue is over. We've already spent 30 minutes on all these other stories. In fact, there's other stories that I didn't even pop up because I know the title of this show is Who is Sitting in the 35th Row? Movement in the Holy Smokes Theater. So we got to get to it. Let me first say a couple things because it's all tied together. Let me first say this. The reporters there is a okay. Let's say there is a PATC reporter. We don't have the name for him yet. Put down a name for our PATC reporter in the Holy Smokes Theater who's running around with a microphone in his hand. Be creative. Give me the name of the reporter in the chat. Your thoughts on the name of the reporter. Let's say there's a reporter running around with a microphone in his hand, and he's going to the popcorn stand, and he puts his microphone in front of these famous college football reporters' names. I'm not going to name them. I don't want to get in trouble. But let's say there's a row of national college football reporters in the row as they're waiting for the popcorn. Okay? And the PATC reporter, which we don't have a name yet. We'll figure it out. Jimmy Olsen. That's good. That's good. Okay. All right. That's a possibility. Joe Z. Billy Blanks. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Holy smokes. That might get a little confusing. It might get a little confusing. Pretty good. Pretty good options so far. Anyways, the reporter puts the microphone in front of the reporter, the national reporters, the names that you all know. Puts it in front of them and says, what are the odds that we get an ACC implosion? Do you think this is really going to happen? Do you think Florida State sitting on the center of the stage over there through those auditorium doors, up the stage, 40 rows and then up the stage, do you think Florida State and Clemson, they're going to find their way out of the ACC, North Carolina, Miami, Florida? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? He's putting them, the Billy Blanks is putting the microphone in front of the reporters. I'm going to tell you something. I think Billy Blanks, the PATC reporter, would be getting an answer back. Yeah, it's going to happen. At some point, it's going to happen. At some point, Florida State's going to get a number, and they're gone. And there's going to be a few other schools that are going to follow them. We believe Clemson is going to be right on their heels. We're not so much going to get to that. We're going to be talking about that in the next few weeks, but that's not so much the focus of today's show. It's something else. But anyways, so we think there's a growing consensus among reporters, among athletic directors, among presidents, networks, everywhere, that it's going to happen. That at some point soon as within the next 2 years, possibly the next year, it's going to happen. An implosion. And people are now planning for the implosion. Not just thinking about it's a possibility, not just waiting if Florida State was ever going to put their flag on the ground, which they did. Now people are planning for the implosion. We want to report something here at Peek Around the Corner. And I think we put it, well, I think we put it in the description box. Karen Endeavor, Luke and Dagger, Clark Kent, Perch Maflugerson. Wow. People are being creative. Okay. We'll come up with a name. We're going to take one of these names here. We're going to report something here. So on January 17th, the PAC-14 is not happening. You saw a report, I think a week ago, 2 weeks ago. We did an episode on it. We did a live show on it, talking about the cost of what it would take for Oregon State and Washington State to poach 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 of those Mountain West schools. And if they were going to poach 6 of them, the cost would be somewhere between $60 and $100 million, depending on who's going to pay the exit fee to the Mountain West. But the contract, the deal between the Mountain West and Oregon State and Washington State, the scheduling agreement, within that scheduling agreement contract, there is this thing where Oregon State and Washington State, if you're going to take us, you got to take all of us. This is the Mountain West schools. If you're going to take us, you got to take all of us. If you take us individually, it's going to cost $10 million for one school, $10 million to $100,000 for the next, or whatever. If Oregon State and Washington State wanted to take 6 of the top Mountain West schools, it would cost a little bit more than $60 million. We think it might cost up to $100 million because of some other exit fee costs, whatever. The truth of the matter is now, and we're going to go through a John Wilner mailbag question and his answer. He just did it yesterday or the day before. But it was a question in regards to Oregon State and Washington State's planning of the future. And I got to tell you, John Wilner, for as much as I was reporting, talking about his comments during the Pac-12, possible being poached by the Big 12, we believe he was off on that. We were correct. We think he's absolutely on to what he is saying. We think he nailed this question, this answer. This is what we are being told by other people, not John Wilner. I've never talked to him. I did send him some stuff in 2022 in regards to USC, the Big Ten, that he ignored, but never talked with them. This is something that John Wilner, we believe, absolutely hits a home run on. And it gets back into the ACC, and it gets back into the Holy Smokes Theater. Let's go take a look. I believe that many of you probably not have seen this question answer. I don't know if anyone has mentioned it on Twitter, nobody that I followed, but it is something that we have been being told the last week or so. And then John Wilner says that we believe John Wilner is 100% correct on his answer to this particular question in the money bag. Mercury News: strategy for Washington State and Oregon State poaching penalty for Mountain West schools, Cal, Stanford, and the ACC, and more. The Cougars and Beavers are monitoring the tumult in the ACC before making their next move. We can confirm. You can take the ACC implosion is not imminent, Cameron B. It's not imminent. We're not saying that. In the next couple of years, if you consider that imminent, yes. Yes, it is. But imminent as in the next day, week, or month? No, it's not. Mailbag strategy for Washington State and Oregon State poaching penalty for Mountain West schools, Cal, Stanford, and the ACC, and more. Cougars and Beavers are monitoring the situation, and yes, they are. And again, if you're Billy Blanks with that microphone, PATC Holy Smokes theater reporter asking college and national college football reporters, I think there is a huge consensus that the Cougars and Beavers are feeling a little bit optimistic about their future in regards to the ACC. And that is why Washington State and Oregon State, for the very first time since we have opened up the ACC drama in the Holy Smokes Theater, Oregon State and Washington State have walked into the auditorium and they have seated themselves in row 35. Now they are there to watch. We're going to go through this answer from John Wilner, but I can tell you we've never talked with John Wilner. I don't think he knows me from the head of the wall, but we believe this to be the case. Not only is the PAC-14, the concept of a PAC-14 with 12 Mountain West schools with Oregon State and Washington State, not only that is dead. We believe that is dead. We put that in the description box below the title of this video. We don't think that vision is alive. We don't think that is alive. If it comes to it, where Washington State and Oregon State does not have an ACC option in 2 years from now, for whatever reason, they're gonna pick apart. They're gonna build themselves an 8-team conference. They're not going to be part of a 14 PAC-14. They're just not going to do it. It's going to be an 8-team conference. And it's going to be mostly Mountain West schools. It could be some AAC schools. We'll get to that in a couple years. But I'm just telling you, Cougars and Beavers are watching. They're in the theater for the very first time. There's reasons for them to watch. There's reasons for them to be at least somewhat more optimistic than they have been for a very long time. With the hefty price to lure Mountain West schools, Mountain West teams into the rebuilt Pac-12, what's the strategy for Washington State and Oregon State? Question asked by Noah Saxon. At its most basic level, this is John Wilner, the Mercury News. At its most basic level, the strategy has little connection to the Mountain West. Instead, Washington State and Oregon State are staying as flexible as possible and monitoring the landscape. If another realignment wave hits, a wave triggered by the fracturing of the ACC, the two schools plan to be well positioned for any opportunities at the power conference level. The power conference level. You know what? I'll go down that rabbit hole after we're through this article answer by John Wilner. Because what's a power conference level, I think, is more different going forward than it's been here in the present and the past. Back to the article. But let's imagine, John Wilner, Mercury News. But let's imagine a world in which the status quo holds. The ACC stays intact. The Big 12 remains content with its structure. And the Pac-12 schools have no options but to rebuild the conference. The agreement with the Mountain West, as reported, carries a hefty penalties for poaching, including $10 million approximate fee for every school that accepts an invitation to join the Pac-12 before the summer of 2027. In other words, an attempt by Washington State and Oregon State to grab 6 Mountain West schools to form an 8-team conference would carry a price tag in the $60 million range. It's going to be more than $60 million. I don't want to get into that in this live show unless you all ask me a question on chat or in a phone call. It's going to be more than 60. It's going to be more than 67.5 million. If the least amount, it's going to be 67.5 million. In the 60 million range, high 60s, and I believe that money could go all the way up to 100 million. But we're not going to delve into that too much on this live show. They have the money. Oregon State, Washington State war chest of approximately $200 million courtesy of the Rose Bowl contract and the NCAA tournament distributions should be available. But what to extent do the Cougars and Beavers plan to use those assets to fund their athletic operations as opposed to rebuilding the conference? That's one of the many decisions looming. However, one source with knowledge of the agreement described the penalty as not enough to prevent anyone from leaving the Mountain West to join the rebuilt Pac-12. In other words, the hurdle with the penalty is not big enough for the Mountain West Conference to be poached. The commissioner tried, Gloria Navarez tried, but she couldn't get enough support, as stated here. Notably, back to the article, notably the source added that the per school cost had been hammered down from the original proposal. Our guess, and it's a very good guess in my opinion, the Mountain West schools most vulnerable to getting left behind, San Jose, Utah State, Nevada, Hawaii, pushed for a big number to dissuade the Pac-2 from poaching, while schools likely to make the jump, San Diego State, Fresno State, Boise State, we believe also Colorado State, insisted on what they viewed as a reasonable number. That said, the hotline has yet to see a departure fee that cannot be negotiated down when it comes time for departed schools to exit. Heck, the Pac-12 just reached a settlement and it didn't have an exit penalty. That was one of the many mistakes made over the years by the university presidents who didn't believe anyone would ever leave the conference. All of which is to say the following. The stipulations within the agreement won't stop Washington State and Oregon State from poaching the top Mountain West schools if it becomes their strategy, and we think it will be, except for the ACC option, which we're going to get to in a second. Nothing will happen in the near term. For now, Washington State, Oregon State will compete as a 2-team conference, quasi-independent schools, with all eyes on the rolling ACC. So, yeah, those reporters that are in the popcorn line at the Holy Smokes Theater, we believe that they would absolutely agree with everything John Wilderness just said. The idea of a PAC-14, it's dead. It's not happening. Oregon State and Washington State, they're not going to do that. They have two options ahead of them. Either poach the top Mountain West schools, 6 of them, to create an 8-team conference, or poach some of them and poach a couple AAC schools, but form an 8-team conference, or they jump into the ACC. And that's what they're looking for. That is exactly what they're looking for. And we've had a couple conversations, one in particular with somebody out in the West Coast who absolutely believes that Oregon State and Washington State, they again, everybody believes the ACC implosion is happening. Not everybody, I shouldn't say that. A consensus, majority of people believe the ACC implosion is going to happen, and it's going to happen in the next 2 years. That's what everyone's looking at here. And in that time, when that implosion happens, Washington State and Oregon State are looking to become members of the ACC. And not with an SMU deal. The implosion of the ACC. Now, people are going to say, look, I said that my first reaction to this, the optimism of Washington State and Oregon State going to the ACC, my first reaction to this was, that's not going to work. That's not going to work, because if Florida State, Clemson, couple other, North Carolina, couple other ACC schools, if they leave the ACC, if they get a grant of rights, if they get a number, they pay it, they leave SEC Big Ten. Some of them might even go to the Big 12, maybe not. The ACC, they're not even guaranteed that current ESPN contract. Remember, the ESPN can walk away. They can decline. They don't have to be the distribution partner of the ACC in 2027 going forward. And they can make that decision in 2025. So why would Oregon State, Washington State still want to join? Why would they join the ACC if within its implosion it's not going to be in existence? Well, according to what we were told, is the ACC, most people believe it is going to exist. It is going to exist. It just is. Most people believe it is going to exist even after the implosion. Even if the ESPN says this contract doesn't work for me, brother, it's still going to exist. It's still going to be the fourth conference. Too much money has been invested in it. The ESPN will adjust their contract. They will offer whatever schools remain. They will offer those schools possibly a new contract, or let them look for a better contract, whatever. That, it's going to exist. Or at least that's what most people believe. Even if ESPN walks away from that particular contract, the one they have now, which distributes only about $23 million per school in media money, $19 million in Tier 1, Tier 2, another $4 million in ACC network, that they'll probably they're going to say we need to readjust this, but those other schools are not going to get better platforms. They're not going to get a better media partner. They're not going to get more money. They'll take the adjustment downward, but still be higher than whatever is the G5 conferences. So what we're being told is Washington State and Oregon State would rather be, of course, be a part of this new ACC conference after the implosion that looks to be the fourth conference behind the Big 12. Big 12 will try to poke a couple of those ACC schools. And this is where it's trending, ladies and gentlemen. This is where it's trending. So, from the PATC standpoint, the information that we continue to receive over the last couple of weeks, we're finally gonna. I have not been touching, as you know, people who watch this show. I've not been touching Washington State and Oregon State. I haven't been talking about it. We've never talked about them being a possibility for the Big 12 because they're not. We've been told that over and over again. We let you speculate. Nope. We kept saying nope. But today, January 17th, Washington State and Oregon State, we can say this now, they're optimistic about an ACC implosion and getting back into a power conference, be it the fourth power conference, the fourth in line, but that's what they're going for. That is their future. They want to go up. They want to be with the Stanford and the California. In the ACC, we were also told by this West Coast person that when the ACC implodes, they're imploding past three schools. That's what most people think. There is enough market value within enough of those ACC schools, or more than three would leave, that the ACC is going to be looking to add a couple more, and you're looking at an Oregon State, Washington State, Tulane situation. So this is what we're reporting today on January 17th. More movement in the Holy Smokes Theater. For the first time ever, we at Peek Around the Corner are talking about Oregon State and Washington State being future members of the ACC conference. We're a long ways to go, but they're definitely now in the theater for the very first time. There is real optimism that they could get back into a Power 4 conference, not the Big 12, but the ACC. And what surprises me the most is, and I got to tell you, what surprises me the most is I thought when the ACC implosion happens, that the ACC now with that, what we found out with that contract, right, that they could walk away. ESPN can walk away. They don't have to be the distribution partner with the ACC starting in 2027. There is the complete annihilation of the ACC. That is not what people think is going to happen. That isn't part of the. It's going to be a devalued ACC. It's going to possibly have a different contract, but the ACC network's still going to exist. It's still going to be part of the ESPN family, probably, most likely. But it ain't going to be like ESPN walks away, it's over, and the conference gets destroyed. That's not what reporters believe is going to happen. That's not what the person that we talked on the West Coast believe is going to happen. And no, we did not talk with John Wilder. I saw that question and answer in the John Wilder Mercury News mailbag, and it's exactly what we're being told. Washington State, Oregon State are going to wait this out. They're in a quasi two-team. It's not a conference. They're two independent football programs. That's what they are. They're going to have to try to make an SNL large bid. The key number, one key number to all of this. This realignment wave, that's going to happen. Boy, there's going to be a lot of movement in the G5 world. What's going to happen is, you remember when the college football playoff management, the managers, they declared, Bill Hancock, they declared that you need to be an 8-team FBS conference to have your champion potentially qualify into the playoffs, being one of the top 5 ranked college football conference champions. You have to be an 8-team conference, 8 or bigger. 8 or bigger. There is a possibility that these G5 conferences, because they don't gain a whole lot more money in regards to expanding their footprint, their media money, it doesn't gain them that much more, unlike what the Big Ten has just done over the years, SEC bringing in Oklahoma and Texas. We might see more G5 conferences, but be smaller in the next 10, 15 years. If Washington State and Oregon State are not able to get into the ACC, and they have a growing optimism that they will be able to get in there, they're going to be part of an 8-team conference. It's not going to be PAC-14. And those other schools that get left out, they're going to form an 8-team conference. There's going to be some 8-team conferences here in the next 10, 15 years. There's going to be some Frankenstein G5 conferences trying to gather consolidation, trying to get the biggest valuable G5 programs there is, but try to keep it at 8-team. Only grow it past 8 if it really benefits all the schools when it comes to the media contracts. That's what we're looking at, ladies and gentlemen. Washington State and Oregon State, first time ever in the Holy Smokes Theater, growing optimism that they see a pathway to the ACC. It's a growing optimism. We have a long road to go. And before I get to your comments, and before I get to your phone calls, questions abound about Clemson. I don't know, about 3 months ago, we reported to you all that the time frame with Clemson, go or no go for launch. We think it's a go for launch sometime between January 20th and February 6th. We were told reasons why it wouldn't happen before. We were told a couple reasons why they didn't think it was going to happen after. This is their window, Clemson's window. Nothing has percolated. Nothing publicly has percolated that Clemson is about to do something, right? About to put their flag in the ground and say, we are also going to challenge the grant of rights in courts. But I got to tell you something. Every day, almost every day, we go on a mission to try to see if Clemson has stood down from their plan, because this was their plan. We haven't gotten that word yet. I know a lot of people think we're going to take the big fat L, and we might hear a peek around the corner, but we haven't gotten the word that anybody has stood down from anything at Clemson. So that is something now today is January 17th. We're not in the window yet. We're getting there. You'd think we'd see some report, right? We haven't, not in public. I can tell you in private, we're being told that nothing has changed. Clemson has not made the decision to stand down. So keep an eye here, peek around the corner as we follow that story as well. Let me get to these generous super chats here. Then I'll get to the rest of the comments. And then we'll get to your phone calls. John Teal, Dion gets #1 stars. Grab that left tackle. Thank you, John, for your super chat. I appreciate it. I think Proctor, probably Iowa bound, Buckeye bound. We'll find out. Thank you, John, for the super chat. Appreciate it. John Teals, reporters should be named Newman, and he wears an overcoat and a hat with a press on it. Also, if Dion gets that LT from Bama, they win the Big 12. Thank you, John, once again for your generosity to the channel. I appreciate it so very much. John, I don't care what your father's first name was, but why not name the reporter after him? That way he's always part of the show, both internally and externally. Wow. Wow. Thank you, John. Thank you for the wonderful comment and the wonderful super chat once again. My father's name was Gerard. Everybody called him Jerry. I think we might have a winner there. Jerry something. Now we got to come up with the last name. Jerry will be the first name. Appreciate it, John. Thank you for the wonderful comment. Wonderful super chat. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Hero75. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. If Notre Dame jumps ship to the Big Ten to save itself from ACC destruction and bring Stanford with them, like I think, then Cal would need some ACC schools near them. Washington State, Oregon State fits the bill to a T. I highly doubt that Stanford's going to be part of the Big Ten. Now, 2 years ago, I thought differently. But now, I don't think that's going to happen. In regards to, Washington State and Oregon State would fit that to a T when it comes to adding on to the ACC if the implosion happens with Cal, with Stanford. In the question of California, they're going to have an audit next week. It's been reported, John Wildner and others, California Board of Regents going to have a meeting about an audit for the athletic program. I can tell you, we have poked and prodded on that story, and we have found nothing. We do not know exactly what that Board of Regents meeting is going to be about. It says audit in the description, in the agenda, but we have no information to share at this point. We wish we did have information, but that's being tight-lipped over there. We're gonna keep trying to figure it out. Canes all day. How quick would the ACC implode once Florida State and Clemson announced they're leaving? Could we see all the P5 horses in the respective barns by 2026? We could. I would say the odds are better by 2027, but we could. In the sense of how quick, that all is determined by how quickly the settlement happens, if it happens, between Florida State and the ACC. What's the process? How it's announced? There's too many variables to. The last we've heard from the Florida State money perch was he told us it wasn't going to be one of these situations. This is Florida State's perception. It wasn't going to be one of these situations if Florida State gets the settlement with the ACC and nobody has followed up, nobody has followed on the heels of Florida State, nobody has come from behind and done the same things Florida State has done, that Clemson in North Carolina, in Miami are not going to be able to belly up to the bar and say to the bartender, let me have what that Seminole is having at the end of the bar. In other words, they're not going to be able to get the same drink. Bam, 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 it's all done. Florida State is not going to do all the work, get the deal done, and then be able to leave the ACC, and all these other schools are going to be able to follow up 2 days later, 3 days later, a week later. From Florida State's perception, from that, how they're feeling that the ACC is dug in, and they're going to be dug in at every step of the way with every other school. Look, Clemson, we believe Clemson shares the same perception as Florida State. This is one of the many reasons why we think Clemson is going to pull the trigger. We don't think like Clemson is going to be able to just find out whatever happens in the Florida State case and say, we want that. Here's the check. Boom, we're gone. We don't think that's how it's going to work. Or at least the Florida State money perch, who's been dead on since December 26, 2022 in the story. If you've been following us here at Peek Around the Corner, information he's been told, it's not going to happen that way. So Clemson, you better get your dancing shoes on, and we're going to find out if they're going to put their dancing shoes on and go to the court, file something in the next 3 weeks. A little bit more than in the next 3 weeks. Thank you so much for your super chat, Canes all day, and that pertains to Miami as well. Let's get to the great comments here. The courts could very quickly decide this. Probably not. Jerry Bierman. Jerry Flugard dad. Interesting. Very interesting. Keep him the family name. Flugard works. I'll think about it. Thank you, John, again, for your generosity. Appreciate it. Interested in seeing how much Florida State and Clemson made this year. All that could leak out, right? We're going to get the final tally in the spring, sometime in the spring. USA Today reports on it every year in the spring, but maybe it comes sooner. There's already leaks. I saw, besides that article, there were Tennessee beat writers who put out that Tennessee made more than $200 million for the very first time. And this, again, the numbers you see in the spring of 2024 are numbers in which the athletic department made between July 2022 and July 2023. I mean, that's it. It isn't the money that schools made the second half of 2023 and into the spring of 2024. The athletic department revenue numbers that you're starting to see today leak out are numbers from July 2022 to July 2023. So, for the most part, these revenue numbers do not take into account the Big Ten's new media deal. They definitely do not take into account the SEC's new media deal. So keep that in mind. Okay. Clemson alumnus. Clemson made a record fundraising to get out of the freaking ACC. Over $150 million just from that club, football club, IPTAY. I used to remember what that stood for. Something like $1 a day, $1 a day. I forget what that means. But anyways, thank you for that information. Clemson has a better argument about not monetizing their 2 national championships and 4 appearances. It was gross incompetence on ACC's part. The extension was signed without the athletic director's vote, which was required. I'm going to open up the phone lines. The phone lines are now open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button. Smash the like button if you like our content. If you do subscribe, make sure your notifications are turned on. We can come up live at any time. We do morning shows. We're doing a lunchtime show. We could come back up tonight with more breaking news. And we also do episodes for everybody. One dropped yesterday morning. We've done 360 episodes. Keep an eye on that. Also, we do early peak members. We got an early peak membership. Ted Evans, Mr. Huskies, just did a gift membership. 5 gift memberships early in the program. But if you want to become an early peak member, hit the join button. Get the first Cloak and Dagger information nugget before we share it live, some of the time anyways. College football's Cloak and Dagger early peak. So just hit that join button. Again, phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. And, so many stories, right? Look, it's crazy. The portal is still crazy. The coaching carousel is still... Look at this. I'm going to show you guys something. Just Nick Saban. Just Nick Saban retiring 1 week ago today. His decision has already led to 5 head coaching changes in the FBS. Washington, Arizona, San Jose State, South Alabama, and Buffalo. Holy smokes.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, Mr. Hawkeye, coaching changes at Iowa. Holy smokes, what's going on?
Yeah, sorry I missed that part. You were actually talking about Iowa, and I wasn't even here for it.
Yes, I did. I'll put it up on the screen right now. Let me find it. And of course, I can't find it. Here we go. Iowa receiver coach Kelton Copeland not retained. Phil Parker gets a raise, $1.9 million. And assistant DCLB coach Seth Wallace named assistant head coach. And the search for the offensive coordinator is ongoing. And an announcement is expected in the near future, Immaculate. What's going on? Who's going to be the new offensive coordinator? I'm going to tell you something. I have no idea. No idea.
Neither do I. The whole Chris thing fell apart.
Yeah.
At this point, there was rumors, and I had looked into, didn't look in directly in contact anyone, but just kind of think about looking into it. That Phil Parker was being reached out to by other schools. With the DC linebacker coach being named assistant head coach, and I got a feeling that that's his long-term position, not his short-term. People thinking that, he might be the next head coach. I'm thinking that's Phil Parker wanting Seth to learn now to help him do some of the head coach stuff, and Phil Parker might take over. In a year or two.
All I can tell you is
hold it for 5 years or so, and then maybe Seth, because that's kind of how Iowa does, man. They want that raised up in house. I don't think they just want to bring someone from the outside to come in and take over. I don't know.
Yeah, I know when the Gophers gave Mo Lindquist a promotion and a raise and had him be the assistant head coach, we all thought he was the next head coach. We thought PJ Fleck was going to leave in a couple of years. He was going to get big. He did have big success. 2019, 2021. But Mo Lindquist went on right away after he got that assistant head coaching position. He left the next year, so we'll see what Seth Wallace does here. He'll probably stick.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was very interesting. I don't follow Iowa religiously or anything, and I wasn't really aware of the guy that much. I mean, the assistant defensive coordinator, so he's already got some experience working very closely with Parker. I mean, that's Parker's guy. And he's the linebackers coach, which people may not realize, but quietly, Iowa is also becoming a very good linebacking school. So the guy's good.
Mm-hmm.
He's no joke as a coach. So this just kind of seems like the answer might be maybe in the future is Parker and crew. And then this is kind of, giving him a little bit of money, keeping him there, make sure he doesn't go anywhere in terms of Parker. Because I think he's like now maybe the second highest paid coordinator in the country. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that's the case, but that's kind of how it feels like. Maybe they're shifting, and maybe Parker does want to take over and hold that down, because that's moving that guy up to helping out with the head coaching duties, whatever that's going to pertain to. I don't think it means he's going to be the new head coach. I think it might mean that Parker's taking over. So we'll see. We'll see. Especially exciting if they're actually going to get this lineman from Alabama who is from the state of Iowa and almost signed with them. We'll see.
Caden Proctor, what do you think about that? Is he coming home?
Well, it was either between Iowa and he was going to go to Iowa and then Alabama.
Oh yeah, he was committed.
I cannot tell you how many times. I don't think I can count it on one hand that Alabama sweeps into the state last minute and just grabs up a guy. Like Saban always knew like who these guys were looking at in that regard for linemen and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he would come in and steal them away. Like it was, I think it's one of those friendly but also at the same time annoying type of things he did. And this was another one of them. And so I think that there's a solid chance he might come back. But I'm sure he's going to have a lot of good offers out there, so maybe he won't.
Yeah.
We'll see. But I'm more curious about all the realignment stuff now. I think we're probably starting to move into that, huh?
Yeah. We talked about Oregon State and Washington State today.
Mm-hmm.
I think that PAC-14 is completely dead. It's never going to happen. I think they're either going to poach the top of the Mountain West and possibly a few AAC schools, but their first option, and I think we were told there's a growing optimism that they're going to be part of the ACC family. Once there's an ACC implosion, they're going to get back into a power conference, quote-unquote power conference, even though it would be the fourth one out of four. And that the ACC is not going to get completely annihilated. It's just going to be devalued, repackaged. This is Washington State and Oregon State's number one goal now, to get back into the ACC. And I think John Wilner's question, I think he's heard this. I definitely has heard this. We have heard this from completely different people we did not talk to John Wilner. So this is something that I think we peek around the corner. We had to report this today. We had to. They're in the Holy Smokes Theater, sitting in the 35th row, immaculate. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's where they should be looking right now in terms of you've got to figure out something. I don't know if I necessarily think that's going to be the thing that ends up happening.
Yeah.
But it feels like that there's something at play. Like we've talked about it, the SMU situation. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me on its own because of the previous allowances for the Big 12 to get 4. But if there are folks who want that PAC situation figured out and ended, they might be saying to the ACC, if you want SMU to get their money, you got to take those 2 schools.
Mm.
And, I'm not saying that's the case. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But just an angle. Like, it just feels like the SMU is part of something else. Like, it's not like one team not getting their pay. Like, I don't know why that would be such a huge deal on its own. But I could see how that could be used as an angle to leverage the ACC to do something. Because they're going to be on the hook for helping SMU if SMU doesn't get that cash.
Yeah.
Because SMU's already doing a whole lot on their own.
Yeah.
If the $6 million is all of a sudden not coming to them, that's pretty serious.
Yeah. And Jim Harbaugh with a couple interviews
It's a weird.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause there's talk about him wanting specific clauses in his contract with Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guessing they're not wanting to do that. So then he goes and has a second interview. And both of these teams are announcing that they're having interviews over Twitter. It's weird.
Never seen that before, but maybe because of the Rooney Rule or something, they want to be more out there. It's just saying, okay, they're being more transparent on who they've interviewed. I don't know.
But have they announced anyone but him? Like, I haven't seen like this person and this person. Like, they're just announcing that they're interviewing Harbaugh. Like, Harbaugh.
I think I've seen other ones.
Have you? I haven't, but I mean,
okay.
That just could be he's not getting them to me.
Mm-hmm.
They could be out there. I thought maybe he was asking them to do that as part of the process to be, so that way it's out there in public and it's causing a little pressure, because like boosters and whatnot would see that and then contact Michigan going, what's going on? Why aren't we getting them? It's a way to indirectly provide pressure in those in that negotiation. So I don't know if he means it or not at this point. It kind of actually seems a bit like a show. And I think he wants to stay at Michigan, but he absolutely wants those clauses. He wants to be protected from being fired or whatever based upon what's coming, because then if he's fired for that, then he probably doesn't get a lot of his other money that would be coming to him.
Yeah.
So,
yep, and then we got the Caleb Downs. The Caleb Downs in the portal, one of the best players in football last year as a true freshman, was a second-rated safety coming out of high school in his high school class. I just read another article from The Athletic. No defensive player drew more raves from rival coaches than Caleb Downs. It's crazy. This is quote. It's crazy to be a true freshman playing in that system the way he is. One of the best safeties I've seen coming out of high school in years. He'll probably be a top 10 pick 2026 draft. So somebody's going to get a Caleb Downs safety for the next 2 years. Who is it going to be, Immaculate? The Buckeyes, the Bulldogs, the Fighting Irish?
I know Moen's putting all his chips in the pot for Ohio State.
Yeah.
He's pretty serious about it, and he has a pretty compelling argument with them going out to grab the A&M guy because he's good at getting money for this type of stuff. So have they done that soon enough? Is he able to do this that quickly in order to grab this kid? I mean, they're going to have to fight against Georgia.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
I would say it's probably between Georgia and Ohio State if I had to guess. I mean, maybe someone else, somehow impresses him enough that he makes a different decision. But if it's just based upon if those two programs want him and they're coming in, all guns blazing, all offerings, I would have to go with one of those two. And with Ohio State, they don't hand out that much that often. I think they probably have an awful lot to hand them if they really want to.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd lean Ohio State, but if he really wants to stay down south, then I guess that would probably be Georgia. We'll see.
Wow. So Caleb Downs could be going to the Ohio State Buckeyes. Caden Proctor could be going back home to Iowa. Holy smokes, Immaculate.
Quite a few from Alabama. I mean, Florida State's basically East Alabama at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And I say that like complimentary speaking, not trying to. I mean, that's the amount of those guys that have come out of there and immediately gone to Florida State. It's quite eye-opening. I mean, I think a lot of people were thinking that Clemson was going to get back on top next year. Whew, I don't know. I think Florida State's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah. Florida State's having a pretty good last couple of weeks after a horrible couple of weeks before that. So it's good for the fan base.
Are we still going to have a January to remember here with some other stuff, or you think that maybe falling back a little bit?
Well, no, we haven't been told down. We haven't been told that anyone has stood down yet. So we still think, we got that date range of January 20th to February 6th. If we'll find out here, we could be taking the big fat L here at Peek Around the Corner, but we're not going to take it quite yet because we've asked the question and people have kind of said, no, we haven't heard. It was their plan, just like it was Florida State's plan. It was their plan. And we think it's going to happen, but we're only 3 days away from the start of that window. You'd think we'd be hearing something, public report, but nothing yet. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, yeah, I was just kind of intrigued about the Iowa stuff and thought I'd call in and throw in my 2 cents on that. We're looking forward to this month. Also, we watch the congressional stuff. That whole thing going on right now after the convention. That could end up being huge, And we got the announcement that Amazon is now kind of moving in and taking over Bally. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw it. Not really connected quite to college football, but it could potentially in the future.
That's what the comment that this seems big now, but we may find out in 5 years or so that this is even bigger.
Yeah.
Because now they got their foot in the door. It's only a minority stake, but that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it, man. I appreciate it, and go Hawks.
Mr. Hawkeye, great call once again. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. College footballs, Peek Around the Corner today. We went through so much. The main story, the Mercury News mailbag strategy for Washington State, Oregon State. The Cougars and Beavers are monitoring the ACC before making the next move. They're going to wait, ladies and gentlemen. And we were told, before this mailbag came out, we were told there's a sort of, they see the pathway. The Cougars and the Beavers, they see the pathway to becoming ACC members along with California, along with Stanford. The ACC implosion, they're going to wait. They're going to wait. They got time. They got time before they have to start creating their conference. And we do not think, we reported today, it's pretty much dead in the water. The PAC-14, the 12 Mountain West schools merging with Oregon State, Washington State, we don't think it's going to happen. The people we talked to, nope. It's worth it to Oregon State and Washington State. If the ACC option does not unfold for them, it's worth it. It's more than worth it for Oregon State, Washington State to spend $60-some million of their $200+ million war chest to pay for an 8-team conference. They pick and choose from the Mountain West schools and potentially a couple AAC schools. So we talked about that today. They are now, Washington State and Oregon State, they're in the 35th row in the Holy Smokes Theater. And we've basically gone over all the updates when it comes to Jim Harbaugh, now interviewed with the Atlanta Falcons, the new Ohio State athletic director, Ross Bjork, who has this reputation as being a good money man, bringing in money, bringing in donors, NIL collectors, built a big one at Texas A&M. But Ross Bjork also has a reputation of having clumsy process for hiring new coaches. The only one that he's gotten credit, Ross Bjork has gotten credit for his for his baseball coach hiring at Texas A&M. But beyond that, basketball, football, the process that he's done, he screwed up the Ole Miss head coach process when Hugh Freeze was fired. They had a rush job. They hired Matt Luke. It was a terrible hire. 3 years, Ole Miss was terrible. And the hiring process is what he got dinged on for the most. Mike Elko, a lot of people like that hire from Texas A&M, but the hiring process once again got away from him. The Stoops, Kentucky coach thing, that whole situation, again, Ross Bjork doesn't have the greatest reputation when it comes to hiring coaches in the athletic department, and that's the number one job. Or maybe it's not the number one job anymore for the athletic director. Maybe it's all about NIL and building the trust fund. John Teal, Shiloh Sanders, Travis Hunter, Caleb Downs. John Teal, he wants Caleb Downs. He wants Keelan Proctor. He wants the Buffalo Collective to pay for all these players. Thank you, John Teal. Thank you so much for your super chat, for your generosity once again. Phone lines are open. Give us a call. Stephen McNeely, Florida State's arch rival will be Minnesota. I don't think so. I do not think so. I don't think Florida State even knows we're in the Big Ten. And plus, Minnesota has their 130-year history with Iowa and Wisconsin. So, what if Florida State went into the Big Ten? Who would be their arch rival? The rivalry game, if Florida State was given a permanent rivalry game, it'd probably be with the team who goes with them, right? It'd be either Miami or Clemson or North Carolina, right? Or Notre Dame, whatever. Other than that, I don't think Florida State would have a permanent rival with any of the schools that right now are in the Big Ten. Penn State has no listed rivals in the upcoming schedule. Pretty sure Florida State will slip into that slot, if I'm immaculate. I would agree. Either that or they are the permanent rival of the team that joins them. Sort of like Washington and Oregon. They're permanent rivals with each other. They're not permanent rivals with UCLA or USC. David Kreitzker. Miami should rebrand as the Falling Iguanas. Very dangerous. Holy smokes. Let's see if there's any news percolating. A lot of stuff came out this morning. Yesterday, we've covered it all in about an hour and some monologue. Still looking for any news on the new offensive coordinator. New offensive coordinator for the Iowa Hawkeyes. This is the early line for 2024 games. Some of the 2024 games. In the first week, let's take a look. Let's take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on. Hold on. Let's take a look at this. '24 lines via FD Sportsbook. Florida State minus 12.5 over Georgia Tech in Dublin. A&M minus 1.5 versus Notre Dame. A&M would be favored. Texas A&M would be favored? Why would they be favored over Notre Dame? That does not make any sense to me at all. That really is... That does not make any... Georgia, minus 12.5 over Clemson. Games in Atlanta. Texas, minus 1.5 at Michigan. That I would take Texas. I mean, we know who Texas coaches. We know who Texas quarterback is. LSU minus 6 over USC in Vegas. Georgia minus 2.5 at Bama. I'd take Georgia right now. I would take the Bulldogs. Jump on that early line. Michigan minus 11.5 at Washington. So many unknowns with the two schools that went to the college championship game. Oregon minus 1.5 against Ohio State. Ooh. Dylan Gabriel versus Will Howard. Lanning versus Day. Big Ten conference game. Georgia minus 3.5 at Ole Miss. Bulldogs favored by more than a field goal at Ole Miss. Jackson Dart's coming back. Carson Beck is coming back. Both quarterbacks are coming back. LSU minus 1.5 over Bama. The Buckeyes minus 6 over Michigan. The game. Colorado Buffaloes minus 7.5 versus North Dakota State. North Dakota State was a little bit off last year, but they're going to be a tough out for the Buffaloes early in the season. Colorado minus 7.5 at home against North Dakota State. Buffaloes, you better buckle up. So those are some of the early lines. The one that sticks out to me is Texas A&M minus 1.5 favored over Notre Dame.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Don't know about that. I do not know. I would take Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is going to be a top 4, top 5 team throughout the season. LFG, I'd favor A&M over Notre Dame. A&M has a much stronger roster based on average per player rating. I don't know. I don't know about that. We'll see. We shall see. Ray LA, Notre Dame going to beat A&M. David Floyd, A&M is always overrated. SEC tax. What's with all the ladies here slandering the Canes? The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. I believe that Brent Brennan, the new head coach of Arizona, is having his news conference right now. I believe that's going on right now. Yeah, it's going on right now. Brennan discussing how there's a lot of kids that like recruiting but don't necessarily love football. Have to recruit talent and love of football. Fish will need years to reconstruct Washington's roster. Yeah, it's going to take at least a couple years, for sure. And they got to give him the time, right? Washington has lost a lot. They were going to lose a lot anyways. Even Kalen DeBoer, under Kalen DeBoer, Washington was going to lose a lot. Justin Lucas. I don't know if I missed an earlier comment, Justin. Don't expect much news from Florida State case until February 16th. What is February 16th, Justin? Was there a date set on the court case? Why do you say February 16th? I'm trying to find if you put an earlier comment on the comment section. Just let me know, Justin, what you meant by February 16th. Appreciate it, sir. Yeah, they might. That's true. They might keep Fafita, T-Mac, McMillan. Florida State, Miami, Clemson fans in the chat, all of them giving each other the elbows. All of them giving elbow shots. I'm taking Oregon. They pretty much returned their entire offensive line minus their center. If the Big Ten stays with no divisions, an easy schedule solution would be for annual rival. I don't think they're going to get away from their flex rivalry format. I think the Big Ten found something that everybody could live with in regards to flex rival. Some are going to have 0 rival games. Some of them are going to have 2. Iowa has 3. It's just the way it is. And I don't think they're going to divisions anytime soon. Okay, I think we're going to close it up. We've been on the air for almost 2 hours. I want to thank everybody for coming on in today. I appreciate it. Oh, we got a call. We'll take a call first.
Call from
JD.
JD, Mr. Seminole, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, sir?
You doing all right, sir?
I'm doing good. Having a great day. Yep.
Listening to your explanations on the positioning of everybody, and a lot of that makes sense. It really does. What do you think here? The ACC's it's been suggested that they're going to try to slow walk this, but are we rapidly approaching a point where it's in their best interest to get out in front? Because if a controlled implosion happens, it gives them more negotiating power. If it happens kind of against their wishes, like there's a jailbreak for teams that want to leave, there's a chance the deal that they get from ESPN, the revised deal, there's going to be money left on the table. And what's your opinion of all that?
Well, yes, a controlled implosion would seem to be the better way to go for the ACC if they know that there's going to be some settlement down the road anyways. And most people think that's what's going to happen, right?
Yes,
If I was the ACC, I would take a controlled implosion and have Florida State pay less money to you than an uncontrolled implosion. I mean, it's. I agree with you. Now, what I was told that came as a surprise to me, which really is part of this story with Washington State and Oregon State, is when we learned that the ESPN could decline their current media contract, distribution contract with the ACC, started in 2027, that they could walk away. I interpreted that as, if the ACC implodes, that, geez, the conference is in big trouble and the whole thing could wash away. But now I'm being told that nobody really truly believes that. It would be ESPN saying, yeah, we got to redo this contract. Here's an offer. If you don't take it, you can go to the open market, but you'll probably come back to us and take it. That seems to be what people believe is going to happen. That's what Washington State and Oregon State, that's why they're keeping this ACC option number one, because they think it's just going to be a new ACC, a devalued ACC, but yet the fourth conference of the four ACC. So that kind of surprised me. We asked some questions. We pushed back on it. But no, that seems to be the future. So you're right. Controlled implosion. The thing is I just don't think it's going to happen in the next month or, I don't think it's going to be real quick. I can't put a timeline on it right now, but I don't think it's happening today, next week, next month.
Well, one thing to consider is the 2027 option for ESPN has to be decided in 2025. That's next year.
Yep.
And so it would be behest of the ACC. They're always so reactionary. It would be in their best interest to get out in front of this and to actually get some money, because if this is dragging into, if for some chance they're successful in muddying this thing out and dragging it out, or muddying it up and dragging it out for an additional year and a half, well, FSU might say, we'll just wait till ESPN actually cancels this deal, and then, we'll leave and you can sue us. I don't know if that's possible or that's how it would happen. But you understand what I mean, is they're apt to lose a lot more by dragging this out than just going ahead and going to the negotiation table. And when I say now, I mean, like you said, I don't expect this one to be the next month or so. But by summertime, I mean, if the ACC was smart, I would be trying to configure the future of the ACC. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't wait till 2025 to do all this negotiating and recreating the conference in the image that's going to be forced upon them. It would be in their best interest to get this done in 2024. And then that way, if they have any financial negotiations or anything else to finalize things, they got a year to do it. And granted, it'll go all the way into 2027. But again, the deadline for ESPN is next year. So I don't know. I really wasn't thinking along those lines. And then when I was listening to your monologue and your explanations, and it's just like, okay, the wheels are turning. And I'm like, well, because that's been the opinion recently, up until the point FSU filed their lawsuit. One reason I believed you was because it went along with things I was hearing in other places. Yeah. Now, once the lawsuit got filed, man, I'm waiting for any episodes you have, because there's just not a lot of information out there.
Yeah, now we're still waiting for, and tell me if I'm wrong, but we're still waiting for dates of these of the first court case of these, right? Like Leon County, like for example.
I thought one of the lawyers on the message boards. I thought he said that the date of response for both cases was February 16th.
February 16th?
I believe that's what he said.
Okay, we had somebody in the chat say February 16th.
Yeah. What it was there was an extension granted, I think, in both cases, and the response in both cases was February 16th.
Okay.
I believe that's what was said.
Okay.
So, and that's just, he's one of the types that'll do FOIA requests and he'll get to the bottom of things. He's been requesting the ACC contract for, I guess close to a decade.
Yeah.
So he's pretty apt to get into the bottom of what's going on. But anyway, yes, sir, that's, just hoping. I mean, that's been the opinion, I guess the opinion of some people is that the ACC will purposely slow walk it, if not just some of the members that might be left out in the cold to kind of just stick it to FSU, Clemson, or whoever else. But, at some point, financially, it's just not going to be in their best interest to do so. If you're a Syracuse, Boston College, Wake Forest, and more Syracuse and Boston College, you better secure your spot in some capacity, because you could lose Power 5 status. And what is the process of losing Power 5 status? In other words, if you're labeled a Power 5 school, like for instance, Oregon State and Washington State, they're still considered Power 5 schools. But if I guess I'm not doing a good job explaining this. In other words, I don't know how it is that they can elevate other schools into Power 5 status.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, what autonomy school is they used to be able to. The autonomy conferences, there used to be 5 of them. They used to be able to, they carved out a little bit of their own world when it came to some things that they could rule and regulate on their own. It wasn't very much. They carved themselves out a little space. But this gets confusing, but that doesn't really exist anymore. Basically, autonomy 4 schools are the schools that are going to get the highest level of distribution money when it comes to playoff money. Okay? When it comes to the playoff distribution money. So Oregon State and Washington State might get autonomous school payout for 2024, 2025. What they're looking to do is get into the ACC by 2026. Okay? But what's really, I think, what is going to be carved out as schools that are going to separate themselves from other schools in relations to being in the room when it comes to rule changes and such is that new subdivision that could be created where you opt in or opt out. But if you opt in, you're going to have to pay each of your student athletes, at least half of them, $30,000 or more a year out of your trust fund, yada, yada, yada. I think that's going to be the new subdivision, new something along those lines of the new. And some of those schools are not going to be autonomous Power 4 schools. Some of them are going to come from the G5. Being an autonomy 4 school doesn't have really any meaning for me, except for you're going to get the highest level of playoff distribution payouts. And no, Oregon State and Washington State, if they create an 8-team conference out in the West Coast, if the ACC option closes on them, they're not going to be they're not going to be autonomy conference, they're going to be a G5 conference. That is why Oregon State and Washington State are keeping number 1 option open with a growing optimism that it's going to happen from what we've been told, to join the ACC once the implosion happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. I forgot. I wasn't thinking about the fact that the reason there's still a player in some of the process is because they are the remnant of the Pac-12, and so they still have. I guess they still have their vote. But and that's why I wasn't thinking. See, I don't have any animosity towards Oregon State, Washington State. Those are the two schools I actually have the most sympathy for, because of everything that has happened. It's not do anything of their own. They just weren't as valuable as a brand, and and I feel bad for that because I hope they do have a spot, at least some type of a equal access to the playoff. Because they were competing at a Power 5 level. But it's just, I just wasn't thinking there for a few minutes. I'm like, they really don't have any bargaining power, but then I forgot they still have a voting power in the 24-25 playoff, and then after that, it's gone. So I got you. I just wasn't thinking there, but I appreciate the reminder there and you filling that in. But like I said, just thinking about all these twists and turns, and I'm looking at the landscape ahead, and I just decided to pick your brain for a few minutes, but I appreciate it.
You got it, buddy. I appreciate the phone call.
Have a great day.
You got it. Thank you, Mr. Seminole. Mr. Seminole, JD, another great phone call. Okay, now we're going to be closing it up. We've been on the air for 2 hours. I appreciate the wonderful phone calls, the very generous donations, the gift memberships, holy smokes, the great comments in the chat room. We covered a lot today. Oregon State, Washington State walked into the Holy Smokes Theater for the very first time. Sat in row 35, a growing optimism that when the ACC implodes, there's going to be a seat for those two schools. John Wilner, the Mercury News, his mailbag, we went over it early in the show. Man, it lines up perfectly. What we have heard from somebody out in the West Coast, not John Wilner. But yeah, Cougars and Beavers, they're going to wait patiently. In bad news for... Look, we think the potentiality of a Pac-14 with the all 12 Mountain West schools joining Oregon State and Washington State a couple years from now is basically dead. DOA, dead on arrival. It's probably not going to happen. If the ACC option doesn't work for the Cougars and the Beavers, they're going to be building an 8-team conference. It's not going to be a 14-team conference. They're going to pay out. They're going to probably buy out some of the Mountain West schools, potentially some of the couple AAC schools. We'll find out. That's a long ways down the road. But there is a growing optimism. Cougar, Beavers. That's why, for the very first time, we've gotten enough information over a long enough time to finally have them walk into the auditorium doors, kick them open, go down 5 rows, sit in the 35th row. Holy smokes. Stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner as we follow this story like nobody else. Stick with us here. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Turn your notifications on. Smash the like button if you liked our content today. If you did not like our content, hit the thumbs down button. Let us know in the chat or on X, formerly known as Twitter. Let us know how we can better serve you, the college football fan. It's crazier behind the curtain than it is in front of the camera. So we're just letting you all know, buckle up, brace for impact. Big days are a-coming. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.